My manipulative, narcissistic husband hit me and burned all my clothes in the yard as punishment and out of jealousy. I just smiled because in return, God clothed my soul. The yard burned as if someone had ignited hell with gasoline. A silk blouse writhed in the flames while the neighbors watched from behind their curtains, doing nothing. They just watched, silent as always. 29-year-old Lucia Miller trembled, her chest exposed, covering her breasts with her arms, barefoot on the cold garden stones. Her face was bruised, her lips were split, and her gaze was empty. Empty of hope, empty of faith, empty of life. The scene seemed straight out of a nightmare, but it wasn't fiction, it was her daily reality. "Look what you make me do," yelled Ethan Carter, her 35-year-old husband. A tall, imposing man with a charming smile and a deep voice. No one in the neighborhood would believe what he was truly like. He had an impeccable reputation as an entrepreneur, a regular donor to the local church, and a sponsor of scholarships for children with disabilities. But inside his home, he was a different person. There, he wasn't Ethan the benefactor. He was the executioner. He held a bottle of whiskey in one hand and a lighter in the other. None of Lucy's favorite dresses, shirts, or pants were left. Not a single garment was saved. Everything had been reduced to ashes. You dress like a tramp, you walk like a tramp, you look at other men like a tramp, and then you're surprised when I get like this? He spat at her as she tried to back away, trembling. Lucy couldn't speak. Her lower lip was broken, dried blood at the corner, and her body was covered in bruises. It wasn't the first time he had hit her, but it was the first time he had exposed her like this in public, in front of everyone. A neighbor briefly peered through her window. Ethan saw her and raised his voice even more. "Look at her well. This is the kind of woman who destroys homes. I'm not the sick one, she is," he shouted with a twisted smile while taking a swig of whiskey. The people closed their curtains. No one would come out to defend her. No one dared to confront him. Lucy was a soft-spoken woman with an olive complexion and a gaze that used to have light before Ethan extinguished it with insults and cruel silences. She took care of her younger sister, Gabby, 22, a sweet, quiet young woman who had been blind since childhood and rarely questioned anything. Gabby was the only thing that kept Lucy alive. For her, she endured everything. Minutes later, inside the house, Lucy tried to cover herself with a sheet. Ethan approached, grabbed the fabric forcefully, and ripped it away. "Ashamed now? After you opened your legs for everyone. You're worthless, Lucy. Nothing. You're a waste of a human being. You can't even be a mother." Lucy squeezed her eyes shut. In her mind, a voice screamed at her to run. Another asked for patience. A darker one whispered, "If you kill yourself now, at least you'll be free." From the kitchen, Gabby heard everything. She said nothing. She took her medicine, the same small, white capsules Ethan gave her every day. She didn't know exactly what they were for. He told her they were to keep her anxiety from flaring up. Gabby trusted him. He had always been kind to her. He read her stories, helped her down the stairs, and played classical music for her to fall asleep. When Lucy went to the market, he would sit with Gabby and talk to her about life, God, good, and evil. "Is everything okay out there?" Gabby asked from the kitchen in a low voice. Ethan turned to her, his demeanor softening instantly. "Yes, honey. Your sister is just a little messy today. She took something she shouldn't have," he said while stroking her head. Gabby nodded, swallowing. She didn't ask any more questions. Lucy watched him. Seeing that double face made her sick. It made her want to vomit. That feigned tenderness, that act, was even worse than the beatings. That night, after picking up the remains of the burned clothes from the patio, Lucy locked herself in the bathroom, filled the tub with hot water, and slowly sank in. She had marks on her neck, old bruises on her ribs, and a constant throbbing in her head that hadn't gone away for days. She thought of her mother. She had died when Lucy was 15 after years of abuse from her partner, the same man who later became a priest, Father John. Lucy never wanted to see him again. She couldn't even say his name without feeling revulsion. Gabby, in the next room, heard the bathroom bolt click shut. She got up with difficulty, feeling her way along the walls. She approached and knocked on the door. "Lou, are you okay?" "Yes," Lucy replied in a dry voice. "I'm just taking a bath. Do you want me to read to you?" Lucy closed her eyes. The water was starting to get cold. "No, just rest, Gabby." Her sister returned to her room. Before falling asleep, she took another pill. Her tongue felt pasty, but Ethan had told her they were necessary. 2 days passed without Lucy leaving the house. Ethan, as always, apologized afterward with a bouquet of flowers, an expensive perfume, and words poisoned with false tenderness. You know I love you, you just drive me crazy. You have that way of looking, that way of talking to men on the street, he said, stroking the cheek where the bruise was just starting to turn yellow. Why do you force me to be this way? Lucy didn't answer. She looked at him with the same coldness one looks at a caged predator. She no longer believed his words. She was just afraid. Afraid he would kill her. But there was something else inside her. A deep weariness was gaining ground. She no longer felt pity, just emptiness. One afternoon, while washing the dishes, a sudden dizzy spell forced her to sit down. She grabbed the sink, her legs trembling. She took a deep breath. "What's wrong, Lou?" asked Gabby, who was entering the hallway. "Nothing, my blood pressure just dropped, I think." Gabby approached with her hands outstretched, touched her face, and felt it was hot and damp. "You're sweating. Do you want me to call Ethan?" "No, don't call him. He's at the office." Gabby hesitated. Lucy took her hands. "Gabby, tell me the truth. Why do you trust him so much?" Her sister didn't know what to say. She lowered her head. "Because he takes care of me, he helps me, he listens when you're not here." "And what else does he do?" "Silence. Nothing else." Lucy looked at her with anguish. She didn't know if what she suspected was real or a nightmare, but something didn't add up. That night, when Gabby fell asleep, Lucy checked the drawer where Ethan kept the pills he gave her. She took one and looked up the name online. She froze when she read the side effects: intense sedation, short-term memory loss, diminished will. It was a medication for patients with severe psychotic disorders. A cold feeling spread across Lucy's chest. He was drugging her sister. He was keeping her confused. Docile. Why? For what? Ethan came home late, smelling of alcohol. He went straight to the bedroom. Lucy was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. He came closer and stroked her hair. "You'll soon understand that I do this out of love, because you belong to me. Do you understand? You belong to me," he whispered near her ear. She didn't respond. The following week, Lucy went to the neighborhood medical center. She feigned a stomachache. The doctor, an older, serious man, asked for a blood sample. When the results came back, he called her into his office. "Mrs. Carter, you're pregnant." Lucy went silent. A buzzing filled her ears. The doctor continued speaking, but his words became a distant murmur. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She didn't say anything. She left the clinic like a shadow. She walked aimlessly through the streets, remembering the times he forced her to have sex when she didn't want to, the way he pushed her against the wall, the nights she pretended to be asleep to avoid him. She returned home just before dusk. Gabby was sleeping on the couch. Ethan wasn't there. Lucy locked herself in her room. She looked in the mirror. "What are you going to do now?" she whispered. Her reflection didn't answer. It just looked back at her, broken, dirty, pregnant, and alone. And then, for the first time in a long time, she felt something she hadn't felt since her mother died. Rage, a silent, cold, slow, unstoppable rage. And not for herself, but for the child. Because she wouldn't let another human being be born to be destroyed by a monster. There, in that dark room, Lucia Miller made a decision. She didn't know how, she didn't know when, but this hell had to end. And if she had to burn again, this time she would burn with justice. The night Lucy discovered her pregnancy, something inside her ignited. It wasn't hope or joy. It was a silent fury, a flame that didn't illuminate but only burned from within. She couldn't allow her child to be born into this prison disguised as a home. She wasn't going to repeat her mother's cycle. She wasn't going to be a corpse that breathed. She waited, she watched, she listened. Ethan left early and came back after midnight, drunk, arrogant, and increasingly aggressive. Gabby was still trapped in her opaque world, taking the pills that kept her quiet, obedient, and oblivious to the storm. Lucy hid some bills she had managed to save in the seam of a blouse before everything was burned. She also took a couple of old documents, a photograph of her mother, and a bottle of water. She didn't have a plan. She just knew she had to get out. When Ethan left for the office and Gabby was sleeping, Lucy crossed the threshold of the door as if she were walking on a tightrope. She moved quickly through the dirt streets, dodging glances, trying to obscure her face with the hood of a borrowed coat. Her breathing quickened with every step. She arrived at the local police station. The place smelled of stale coffee and sweat. There was only one officer on duty, a middle-aged man with a bored face and dirty fingernails. "I want to report my husband," Lucy said in a firm voice, although her legs were trembling. The man looked her up and down. His eyes lingered on her split lip, on the bruises under her sleeve. "Name, Ethan Carter." The officer stopped writing. The entrepreneur? Lucy nodded. The man closed his notebook. Wait a moment. He went into an adjoining office. Lucy felt a chill. 5 minutes later, he returned with a younger officer carrying a folder under his arm. Your full name? Lucia Miller. The young man opened the folder and took out a document. He placed it in front of her. We have a prior complaint filed by your husband. It says you suffer from psychotic episodes, hallucinations, and that you abandoned psychiatric treatment a month ago. Here's the psychiatrist's certificate. Lucy froze. That's false. I've never been in treatment. According to these papers you have. The young man lowered his voice. There's also a follow-up order. He asked us to call him if you showed up here. He says there might be a danger to you or your sister. No, he's the danger. Lucy screamed. The older officer stood up. We're going to call your husband to take you back. This is no place for tantrums. Go home and work things out like a grown woman. You can't force me. They pushed her into a waiting room. They locked the door. The phone rang. It was Ethan. 30 minutes later, he arrived with a calm smile, impeccable as always, dressed in a suit, perfumed, playing the role of the concerned husband. Thank you, officers. I promise this won't happen again. She's just having an episode. You know, the pregnancy has made her very sensitive. Lucy tried to scream, but Ethan leaned toward her and whispered something that left her speechless. Say one more word and Gabby will suffer twice as much. She felt her throat close. He escorted her out with his hand on her waist like a gentleman. The officers said goodbye with knowing smiles. Lucy was an object, a broken doll. Nothing more. Already in the car, Ethan turned up the music. An uncomfortable silence. You really thought you were going to win, he said without looking at her. I have contacts, I have lawyers, I have psychiatrists who will sign whatever I want. All you have is that withered body and a baby you didn't even want. Lucy looked out the window. It was raining. The drops looked like tears falling from the sky. And there's no prison for men like me, he added in a calm voice. The worst part is that you'll come back because no one else will want you broken. The car stopped in front of the house. Gabby came out with a blanket in her hands. Lucy, I was so worried. Are you okay? She didn't answer. She just walked straight to her room, closed the door and collapsed. Hours later, while Ethan was sleeping drunk on the couch and Gabby was reading a book in Braille that he had given her, Lucy put a few things in a backpack. She looked in the mirror. Her face was swollen, with deep circles under her eyes. She looked like a ghost. She didn't think about the future. She just thought about surviving. This time, she wouldn't go to the police. She would go somewhere no one could find her. She opened the door slowly, taking a step outside. The cold air hit her face. She felt free and condemned at the same time. She walked for hours. Her feet were dirty and sore. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her body demanded rest, but her mind pushed her to keep going. Near the old market, she tripped on a misplaced step and fell to her knees. People walked past her without stopping. No one helped, no one asked. She stayed on the ground, trembling. Everything was spinning. She felt like the world was falling apart. Footsteps approached. Worn-out shoes. Hard, dark eyes watched her from the shadows. Are you okay? A hoarse voice with a northern accent asked. Lucy tried to get up. She couldn't. The man knelt, offering her his hand. She hesitated. I'm not going to hurt you. She looked at him for the first time. He had scars on his hands, a scruffy beard, and a gaze that didn't judge. It seemed broken. Like her. What's your name? Lucy. I'm Ben. She took his hand. He helped her to her feet. You have blood on your knee. Come on. There's a place nearby where you can rest. Lucy hesitated. Something inside her told her not to trust him. But something about him didn't seem dangerous. Ben led her to an abandoned house on the outskirts of the neighborhood. It had no luxuries, but it was clean. There was a mattress on the floor, a small stove, and bottles of water. I'll leave you alone for a bit. I'm going to get something to eat, he said without looking at her. Why are you helping me? He stopped at the door. Because I know what it's like to run. Because I was also a prisoner of someone. And because I recognize you. You have the same look my mother had before she died. When Ben left, Lucy collapsed onto the mattress. She couldn't stop trembling. She felt the baby move for the first time. It was just a soft pressure, but it was enough to break her. She cried without making a sound. She just let the tears fall. When she woke up, Ben had already returned. He was making instant soup. How long have you been on the street? He asked without looking at her. Hours. Days. I don't know. Running from your husband? Lucy nodded. He beat me. He destroyed me. Ben was silent. Then he took an old photo out of a box. He showed it to her. Do you know him? Lucy froze. It was Ethan Younger, smiling next to another boy who was clearly Ben. What is this? We were raised in the same reformatory. Ethan was my shadow for years. He always pretended to be the good guy, but he was cruel. He enjoyed making the weak suffer. Once, he made another kid hang himself. He convinced him he was worthless. Then he cried at the funeral as if he were his brother. Lucy felt nauseous. Why are you telling me this? Because there are things you don't know. Your husband isn't just an abuser. He's into darker things. Human trafficking, forced pornography. And he doesn't act alone. Her chest tightened. How do you know that? Because I was there. Because I saw what he was filming, and because one of his friends offered me money to keep quiet. I refused. They put me in jail for something I didn't do. Lucy stared into space. I'm pregnant. Ben said nothing, just served her a plate of soup. That night, Lucy slept for the first time in months without fear of being hit. She didn't dream, she just rested. But in the house she left behind, Ethan woke up furious when he discovered Lucy was gone. He smashed glasses. He yelled at Gabby. He told her sister was an ingrate, a mentally ill person who had abandoned her own flesh and blood. Gabby cried. She wouldn't do that. She left you. And she left her future nephew, too. What kind of person does that? Gabby didn't answer. She felt something strange in her stomach, as if a truth was trying to get out. That night, Ethan gave her 2 more pills. They'll make you feel better, he said sweetly. Don't think so much. Trust me. Gabby swallowed them without a word. Lucy, in another corner of the city, was beginning to wake up. The pain was still there, the fear was still there, but something about her was no longer the same. She had learned the price of obedience, and she wasn't going to pay it anymore. Lucia woke up with a start. The old mattress she was sleeping on at Ben's place smelled of time and dust, but it was the safest place she had been in years. She sat up with difficulty, feeling a slight pain in her belly. The pregnancy was just beginning, but her body was already speaking. The silence in the room was deep, broken only by Ben's footsteps in the kitchen. He looked at her from the doorway with a mug of coffee in his hand and a calmer gaze than on the first day. You slept 12 hours. You needed it, he said in a neutral tone. Lucia didn't answer, just rubbed her forehead. Her mind was foggy, as if she was still floating in the dense water of her own thoughts. Your sister knows you're gone. Don't you think he's going to take it out on her? I don't think so. I'm sure of it. Ben put the cup on the makeshift wooden table and sat across from her. You have to prepare for things you're not ready to hear. I want you to know that I'm not here to save you, Lucia. I'm not a hero, but I have reasons for helping you, reasons that neither you nor I have talked about yet. Lucia looked at him with suspicion. What kind of reasons? Ben swallowed. It was hard for him to speak, as if he were digging up words from old wounds. I was part of his world, not by choice. We were raised together, Ethan and I. They trained us to survive in a dirty system. He chose to follow it. I rebelled and paid for it with jail time. They accused me of kidnapping, but in reality, I witnessed something I shouldn't have seen. I saw what he did with women, what he filmed, how he drugged them, how he sold them. Lucia stayed still. Are you telling me that I was going to be one more? Another piece in his catalog of slaves, but he changed his mind about me? I don't know why. Maybe because it made him feel powerful in another way, or maybe because he wanted something more macabre. Lucia lowered her head. Her body felt heavy. The words were pushing her into an abyss she already knew, but this time without the safety net of ignorance. I wasn't his wife. I was his experiment, she murmured. You knew it, Ben replied. You just didn't want to accept it. The light coming through the window showed Lucia's hollowed eyes. Her face looked like someone who had crossed too many emotional borders. She got up slowly, walked to the sink, and let the water run. She looked at herself in the mirror. She was haggard with dull skin, but her eyes were no longer dead. They were focused. I have to expose him. I have to show what he is, not just for me, but for all the ones who couldn't speak. Ben took something out of his pocket, an old cell phone with a cracked screen. This phone was given to me by a woman who escaped from his network. She didn't survive. She died in a hospital 3 weeks ago. She left this for someone who could use it. I didn't know you existed until I found you on the street. Check it out. Lucia took the phone with trembling hands. She turned it on. It took a few seconds to boot up. There was only one folder, don't forget. She went in. There were several videos. Most were of terrible quality. Noises, muffled voices, screams. One of them had her name, Lucia Blackheart MP4. She hesitated, looked at Ben. He nodded. Lucia pressed play. The image was blurry. The camera was shaking. A dark room, red lights, low music. A woman was lying on the bed. It was her, Lucia, naked, motionless, drugged. A male voice laughed behind the camera. "Octavio, you won't forget her, right?" The other man, young with an open shirt, got on top of her. Lucia didn't respond. She was unconscious, unaware of what her body was experiencing. The camera approached Ethan's face. His smile was diabolical. "It's like having a new doll every week, but this one is mine. I just lent her out, understand?" Lucia screamed, slammed the phone shut, fell to the floor, and vomited on the carpet. Ben knelt beside her without touching her. She cried in silence. Dry, dense tears like blood. Her breathing was short, as if her throat were closing. "Is that your son, right?" she asked in a broken voice. "It's not Ethan's. It's that Octavio's." Ben didn't answer. He just picked up the phone and placed it on the table. "Now you understand why he protected you? Because you were useful to him for that." Lucia hugged her legs. She was cold, even though the day's heat was strong. Her mind filled with distorted images, with nights she thought she had forgotten. Flashes of music, lights, smells that now made sense. The nights she woke up naked without remembering anything. The times Ethan said she had been incredible while she didn't understand what he was talking about. Lucia got up, went to the bathroom, and splashed water on her face. She looked in the mirror. Her reflection gave her a phrase. "I'm not going to kill you, Ethan. I'm going to bury you alive." Meanwhile, Gabby at the house continued taking the pills as part of her routine. That night, trying to go down the stairs, she lost her balance. She hit her head on the railing. Ethan ran to help her, but not with concern, rather with annoyance. "What's wrong with you now? You can't even walk." I'm confused. I hear voices, I see things. I don't understand what's happening." "You're okay. You're just going through an adjustment. Your body is getting used to the medication. But I don't remember when I started taking it. Months ago. Don't worry, I have everything under control." Gabby sat on the couch with teary eyes. Her memory was beginning to show cracks. Shadows of the past were returning. Her mother's voice, the screams, a dark room, and the face of the man who now wore a cassock, the same one who touched her when she was a child. "John," she whispered. "Who is John?" Ethan froze, then smiled. "He was an old friend of your mom's. He's dead now." "Are you sure?" "Completely. Stop thinking about ghosts, Gabby. I'm here. Isn't that enough?" She nodded, but something inside her no longer trusted him completely. Lucia, on the other side of the city, took a shower for the first time in days. The cold water brought her back to life. When she got out of the bathroom, she put on clean clothes that Ben had gotten for her. A simple dress, a scarf, and flat shoes. "There's something else you should know," he said while waiting for her in the living room. "What?" Ben took out an old notebook with stained pages. "This is a list of the names of the women who were victims of Ethan. Some are dead, others disappeared, a few escaped. They're in hiding, scared. But if you speak, if you show your face, maybe you'll find one who also wants to break the silence." Lucia took the notebook, running her fingers over the names. Each one was a silenced story, a private hell. "I need to record a video," she said. "Not to expose him yet, just to speak, to get my voice back." "Do it." That night, Ben set up a phone on an improvised lamp. Lucia sat in front of the camera. She took a deep breath. "My name is Lucia Miller. I'm 29. I'm pregnant, and I was violated while I was sleeping by my husband's best friend with his consent. He filmed it, he laughed, he used me, he drugged me, he manipulated me. He beat me, he destroyed me, but here I am. Alive. Damaged, but alive. And I'm not afraid to speak." The video was not published yet. Ben saved it on a secure drive. They knew they needed solid proof. A plan. Meanwhile, Gabby stopped taking the pills for 2 days. She started to see more clearly, to remember. She went into Ethan's room while he was in the shower. She checked his desk and found a locked folder. She forced the lock with a hairpin. Inside were medical papers. One said, "Gabriella Miller, ocular surgery caused by induced trauma." She felt a dizzy spell. She grabbed the desk. She was breathing as if something invisible were squeezing her chest. Ethan came out of the bathroom. He found her going through his things. "What are you doing?" "Nothing. I was just looking for my book." "Don't lie, Gabby. You're not good at lying." She looked at him straight on. For the first time, she didn't lower her head. "What did you do to me?" He looked at her and smiled. "I protected you. Or would you have preferred to see everything your sister was doing? Sometimes it's better not to see the pain." Gabby locked herself in her room. She cried until she fell asleep. Lucia, on the other side of the city, was opening a new page in her life. She was no longer a victim. She was a witness, and she was determined to speak. The cracks in the soul are not always visible, but when they open, they do so to let in the light. St. Martha's Church stood on the hill, as if it wanted to touch the sky. Its white, clean, impeccable facade contrasted with the souls that often entered its doors to hide what they couldn't say aloud. Lucia climbed the steps with a different kind of weight than on other days. It wasn't guilt, it wasn't faith, it was a deeper need. To understand, to confront, to uproot the last shadow that had been breathing in her chest since she was a child. She felt weak. The pregnancy was beginning to demand attention, but she only thought of the name that had taken away her sleep for years, John. The man who touched her in silence when she was just a 9-year-old girl. The same one who told her that God had blessed her with a beautiful body and that if she told anyone, hell would swallow her. Lucy had never said a word to anyone. She had erased it, buried it. Until now. Mass had ended half an hour ago. The silence of the temple was dense, as if the sins of all the attendees were still floating in the air. Lucia walked down the central aisle, her gaze fixed on the hunched figure of the priest who, with his back to her, was arranging the candles on the altar. "Father John," she said in a low but firm voice. He turned slowly. He had the same cold gaze as always, more wrinkles, less hair, but the same fake smile he used to use when he caressed her under the pretense of prayer. "Yes, my child." Lucia didn't respond. She watched him closely, looking for some sign of recognition. Nothing. He was pretending. "You don't remember me?" The priest frowned. He walked toward her with his hands clasped. "I'm sorry, I see many faces every week. Do we know each other?" "I'm Lucia Miller, the daughter of Martha." There was a pause, a sharp silence, a slow blink, and a drop of sweat on the priest's forehead. "Ah, Lucy, of course. Martha's daughter. How sad about her death. You were her partner for years. You lived with us. You slept in the room next door. You took care of me when Mom went to work." He looked at her in silence. He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it. "And you touched me while I was sleeping. You told me it was a secret between you and God." The priest's face changed. A slight tremor crossed his lips, but he didn't back down. "You've suffered a lot, my child. You're confused. Sometimes the mind invents things to justify the pain you feel." Lucia took the phone out of her coat, leaving it recording inside her bag with the screen off. "I'm not confused. I remember every night, every word, every threat. I've remembered it in dreams for years, and now it has returned with an unbearable clarity. You hurt me. You took away my innocence. You stole my faith." The priest sat on one of the pews, lowering his head. The silence filled the temple again. "I did." The confession came out low, as if he were talking to himself. "I did, and God punished me for it. He gave me this guilt, this curse in my blood, but then he forgave me. I've dedicated my whole life to repairing what I broke." Lucia took a step forward. "And you think that's enough? What more do you want? For me to lock myself up? For me to hang myself in the bell tower? What kind of justice do you think exists for a man like me?" "I'm not looking for justice. I'm looking for truth. Because it wasn't just you. Because there are others. Because you also protected Ethan when he started. Because you taught him to hide behind the cassock, the fake smile, the sweet words. Because you're part of the same poison." Father John looked at her then with the eyes of a defeated man. There was no compassion on his face, only the resignation of one who knows he has been discovered. And he was brilliant. He had a gift for manipulation. "I thought it was just a game until it was too late." Lucia was recording everything, every word, every silence, every pause that gave him away. "And the girls? You touched the others too." John froze. He didn't answer. "And how many, John?" "4. Lucia sat across from him. She wasn't crying. She no longer had tears. "And what if it were your daughter?" "I don't have children. I didn't have a father either, and you took that place. Look at what you did." Gabby arrived at that moment. She walked slowly down the aisle of the church. Her steps were unsure, but her head was held high. Lucy saw her coming. She stood up. "What are you doing here?" Lucia asked. Gabby didn't answer immediately. She stood there, her face pale. "I dreamed about Mom. I dreamed she told me to come, that the truth was waiting for me at the altar." John looked at her with horror. "You, Gabby. I remember you. You would caress my hair while I slept on the couch. You would give me candy, and you wouldn't say anything. You would tell me Mom would punish me if I said what you did." Lucia walked to her and hugged her tightly. For the first time, Gabby didn't tremble at the touch. She just held on. "You made me blind, didn't you?" John clenched his fists. "It was an accident, I swear. I didn't mean to. It was just a push, but you hit your head. Gabby pulled away from Lucy. She was breathing heavily. And you locked me in the pantry. You left me without light. It wasn't God. It wasn't an illness. It was you. The priest stood up, stumbling. Stop. You two don't know what you're saying. I was another man. I'm not him anymore. Lucia showed him the phone. I'm not going to take justice into my own hands. I'm not like you. But this, she held up the phone, is going to get out of here, and everyone is going to know who you are. John tried to grab the device. Lucia backed away. Ben appeared at the entrance of the church. He approached quickly. Come on, that's enough for today. John fell to his knees. God forgave me. God forgave me. Lucia looked at him with contempt. But I didn't. They left the church. The sky was gray. Gabby was breathing with difficulty, but there was something new on her face, determination. I want to leave Ethan's house, she said suddenly. I don't want to depend on anyone anymore. Are you sure? More than ever. Lucia hugged her. Ben watched in silence. That night, they returned to the safe house. Gabby began to write a letter of denunciation. Lucia uploaded the audio of Father John to an anonymous account. By dawn, it was already viral. In less than 2 hours, the priest's name was appearing on social media as an abuser, a monster, a symbol of a truth that had been silenced for years. Lucia watched from the window. She felt fear, she felt rage, but she also felt something else. She felt that the cracks in her soul were finally beginning to heal. In the distance, Ethan was smashing a glass against the wall, shouting, looking at his phone over and over again. Rage was deforming his face. The silence was ending. The power was slipping away. And inside him, something was beginning to fracture. What he didn't know was that the worst was yet to come. The night Lucia pressed the send button, there were no fireworks or cheers, just silence. The video, that testimony recorded with a broken soul, accompanied by the priest's chilling audio and the fragments of horror filmed by Ethan, was uploaded to an anonymous social media account. The title was simple, direct, unadorned. I was his wife and I was his victim. Ben stayed by her side without saying a word. He just looked at the screen as if he understood that this moment didn't need any more noise. Gabby, sitting on the couch with a blanket over her legs, heard the final click and lowered her head. There's no turning back now, Lucia murmured. There never was, Ben replied. The first reactions arrived in less than half an hour. Comments, reposts, shares. A high-reach feminist channel reposted the video with a caption that read, "This isn't a movie, this is the USA, this is real." Then came the Twitter threads, the analyses, the activists, the public denunciations. Ethan Carter's name became a trending topic in less than 4 hours. The images of the abuse, carefully edited to protect Lucia, showed enough for the truth to be undeniable. Faces, voices, dates. Ethan's smile mocking his drugged wife was so brutal that the media didn't take long to pick up the story. The first calls didn't take long to arrive. National media, TV shows, digital magazines. Everyone wanted an interview. Everyone wanted her story. But Lucia didn't answer. Not out of fear, but because she knew that now time was on her side. The world was beginning to see, and that was enough for now. On the other side of the city, Ethan threw his phone against the wall of his penthouse. He had gone from disbelief to fury in a matter of minutes. His name, which had once appeared in economic columns, was now dragged through portals as a symbol of violence, manipulation, trafficking, and abuse. Who was the bitch who leaked this? He shouted while his two partners watched him without saying a word. Octavio, sitting on the couch, was drinking in silence. His skin was pale and his lips were dry. He knew he was also involved and that there was no way to escape. You got me into this, he finally said in a low voice. You got yourself into it, Ethan spat. No one forced you to *CK her. You enjoyed it just as much as I did. She wasn't conscious, Octavio replied on the verge of tears. I didn't know. I thought she was just asleep. Don't come at me with morals. If I go down, you go down too. And your wife and your kids. Octavio got up, said nothing, took his things and left. Ethan never saw him again. Ethan's bank accounts began to freeze. His company, Carter Investments, lost sponsors and alliances in less than 2 days. Cameras were waiting for him outside his residence. A journalist managed to ask him as he drove away in his armored car. Do you have anything to say about the accusations, Mr. Carter? Ethan didn't answer. He just sped up. Lucia saw him on TV. She didn't smile, she didn't cry. She just changed the channel. She was no longer interested in his reaction. She was interested in something else. She was interested in Gabby. Then, with the help of a contact from his prison years, had arranged a medical appointment for her. A renowned ophthalmologist who accepted delicate cases free of charge when he found a story that was worth it. "Are you sure?" Lucia asked her, holding her hand. "I'm ready," Gabby replied. "I want to see. Even if it scares me, even if it hurts, I need to see." The operation was delicate. 3 hours in the operating room. Lucy waited in the waiting room, pacing back and forth. Ben stayed outside, not daring to enter. Gabby's past was also his. He also carried it like a wound that had never healed. When the doctor came out, he informed them that the operation had been a partial success. She will regain peripheral vision in the coming weeks, and maybe with therapy, she will recover much more. The important thing is that her brain still retains the connections. She'll need time and a lot of support. Gabby opened her eyes 2 days later. The first thing she saw was a halo of light, shapes, shadows, then the figure of her sister sitting next to the bed. Her lips. Her tears. "Lucy, I'm here. You look just like Mom." Lucy hugged her. "And you look beautiful." Gabby cried. Not because of her vision. She cried for what was returning with it. Fragmented images of her childhood. A dark room. The priest's hands. The voices. The threats. The fear she thought was buried. "I remember things," she whispered, trembling. "You're not alone anymore. I want to talk. I want to tell everything." Lucia stroked her hair. "You will, but when you decide." Meanwhile, the media continued to exploit the scandal. Every day, more women began to speak. Some contacted Lucia through the anonymous account. They told her their stories, their trapped nights, the drugs, the cameras. Some remembered the smell of Ethan's perfume. Others, Octavio's laugh as he filmed. Lucia's account reached 1 million followers in 3 days. The original video surpassed 10 million views. What had started as a personal story was now a movement. Lucia decided to go back to the neighborhood. Not to hide, not to confront them, just to walk. She wanted to close a circle. Ben accompanied her. Gabby also dressed up, in a red dress, the same color Ethan always forbade her to wear because he said it made her look like a tramp. She carried her belly exposed with pride. It didn't matter that the baby was the result of a night of horror. He was hers. He was her battle made flesh. When she set foot on the main street, the glances began. Neighbors murmured from their windows. Some men lowered their heads. Others looked at her with rage. Lucia walked step by step in front of the house where Ethan had left her half-naked, with her clothes burning in the yard. She stopped, looked at the facade, and smiled. Not with joy, but with freedom. Someone took a photograph, then another, and another. In a matter of minutes, the image went viral. Lucia Miller, dressed in red, pregnant, in front of the very place where she was almost destroyed. Now standing whole. That night, a journalist contacted her. "We want to interview you. We want you to speak." Lucia accepted. "But I don't want a set, I don't want makeup. I want you to film me in the abandoned house where I took refuge. I want people to see what it's like to start from scratch, with fear, with hunger, with wounds, but alive." Ethan, hiding in a motel on the outskirts of the city, saw the interview on his laptop. He slammed the table. Nothing was left of his empire. His cards didn't work. His friends had betrayed him. Even his lawyer had suggested he turn himself in. "This isn't going to end here," he said with bloodshot eyes. That same night, he tried to escape across the border, but someone reported him. A contact. Someone close. The police were already looking for him on charges that included rape, human trafficking, corruption, and the production of non-consensual pornography. But Ethan didn't plan on giving up. Lucia knew it. She felt that something else was coming. A final battle. Gabby, looking at herself in the mirror for the first time with clarity, didn't cry for her face. She cried for what she remembered, for her mother, for her stolen childhood, for the little girl who was locked in the pantry while John played at being a man of God. "Do you think one day I'll be able to forget?" No. But you'll learn to live with it, and when you least expect it, that pain won't control you anymore. The image of Lucia in front of the house was chosen by several portals as the image of the year. A destroyed woman who decided not to give up, who turned hell into a sacred fire. Gabby started writing and singing again. Ben began building a small workshop to help women who were escaping similar situations. Lucia was no longer afraid. She wasn't seeking revenge, just truth and justice. But Ethan was still breathing, still crawling in the shadows, and he still had one last card to play. Lucia felt it like a chill that precedes a storm, and she was ready because now she was no longer alone. Night fell on the city like a blanket of ash. The air was still, thick, as if it sensed that something was about to break. In the refuge where Lucia lived with Gabby and Ben, the tension was palpable. No one said anything, but they all knew that the calm was a temporary illusion. Gabby looked out the window with her eyes narrowed, still adapting to her partial vision. Lucy, 8 months pregnant, walked slowly down the hall with her back tense and her jaw tight. There was something in her chest that was beating faster than normal, like a silent alarm that only she could hear. Ben came in with a distraught face. He had received an anonymous message from a number that no longer existed when he tried to call back. The text was short, direct, poisonous. "Tonight I finish what I started. Only you are left." Lucia read the message without making a sound. She took a deep breath and ran her hands over her belly as if protecting a delicate piece of glass. "He's close," Ben said. "Someone saw him by the warehouses in the industrial sector. He asked about you. He had a gun. He's out of control." Gabby approached with an unsure step. "If he's coming for you, he's also coming for us. We can't just stay here and wait." Lucia shook her head. "We can't run again. What do you propose?" "We go after him." Lucia looked up. Her gaze wasn't one of fear. It was something else, something she wouldn't have recognized herself a few months ago. "Yes, we're going to face him." Ben tried to stop her, but she had made her decision. They changed quickly. Lucia put on comfortable pants, a loose blouse, and tied her hair in a makeshift bun. Gabby took her cane, although she needed it less and less. On the way, the silence in the car was a knot in everyone's chest. Ethan moved like a cornered animal. The abandoned factory where he once set up one of his secret networks was now his lair. He had entered through the back with a flashlight and a bottle of alcohol in his backpack. He walked through the aisles full of rust, cobwebs, and the dry ghosts of his past. In his eyes, rage, delusion, and desperation mixed. He was no longer thinking clearly. He saw enemies in every shadow. "Lucy," he whispered, "you're mine. You always were." What Ethan didn't know was that someone was following him. A few feet from the entrance, a female figure was slipping through the rubble. It was Teresa, one of the women who survived his abuse. For years she had been silent. She had rebuilt her life in the shadows, but after seeing Lucia's video, something inside her awakened. She had returned to see her tormentor fall. She had a hidden camera in her coat. She also had a lighter and a bottle of gasoline. Lucia and Ben arrived minutes later. The silence of the place was terrifying. Only the sound of their footsteps and the beating of the wind against the rusty metal sheets broke the stillness. "This was the place," Ben said. "This is where he brought them." Lucia stopped in front of a steel door. The smell of dampness was dense, but there was also a faint trace of perfume, one she knew all too well. Ethan had been there, maybe he was still inside. They moved forward. Lucia carried the phone with the camera on as an invisible shield. The flashlight illuminated dirty walls with graffiti and dark stains. When they reached the center of the warehouse, a figure rose from the darkness. "You're late," Ethan said in a deep voice, his eyes lit up. Ben stepped in front of Lucia. Ethan raised the gun, but he didn't aim. He just showed it as if to intimidate with its mere existence. "Look at you, Lucy. Look at you with your swollen belly and your martyr face. You think you won. I didn't win. I survived," she replied. "You have no idea what awaits you. That child is going to be born marked with the blood of a monster, just like you, because you are one too. You project your evil onto everyone, Ethan. But this isn't about you. It's about me. About all of us." Ethan laughed. "There's no justice. There's no redemption. There is no God. Just us, the ones who take what we want. That's why you're going to burn alone," a voice said from the back. Teresa emerged from the shadows. She still had the camera recording. Ethan tensed. "You. I thought you were dead. I died when you sold me, but today I've returned to bury you." She opened the bottle of gasoline and threw it on the floor, forming a path. Then she took out the lighter and lit it. The fire began to advance slowly like a tongue of judgment. Ethan screamed. He ran towards the exit, but Teresa had already closed the main door. Ben pushed Lucia and Gabby out of the warehouse through a side entrance. The fire grew fast. Old fabrics, plastics, and rotten wood fed the flames like a feast. Ethan was screaming, hitting the walls, but the smoke was enveloping him. "Lucy! Lucy! This doesn't end here." The last time his voice was heard was in a brutal shriek. Then the roof collapsed. Teresa came out limping, covered in ash, her face firm. She wasn't crying, she wasn't smiling. She was simply breathing as if, after years, she could finally do so. Lucia fell to her knees. A sharp pain shot through her belly. Her breathing became short. The warm liquid between her legs confirmed what she already knew. "It's coming," she said, trembling. The baby is coming now. Gabby called 911 while Ben helped her lie down. The fire continued to burn behind them as if it were burning all the past at once. The ambulance arrived quickly. Lucia was admitted to the hospital with contractions every 3 minutes. The baby's heart was beating strongly, but its position was complicated. The doctor decided to prepare for an emergency C-section. Gabby went into the operating room with her. She didn't want to leave her alone. She held her hand as the anesthesia took effect. Lucia looked at the white ceiling, trembling. "Do you think he'll be okay?" Gabby looked at her with teary eyes. "He won't inherit the pain. Lou, your son is going to be born free." The surgery lasted 45 minutes. The baby cried loudly upon delivery. It was a boy. He weighed just over 4 pounds. They placed him on Lucia's chest as soon as he was cleaned. She cried, not from sadness or fear. It was a different kind of crying, one she had never known. "Hello, my love," she whispered. "You don't come from darkness. You are my light." Gabby hugged her. Ben watched from the doorway in silence. Fire had marked his whole life, but that night, for the first time, he had seen how fire could also purify. Lucia closed her eyes, exhausted. In her mind, a fleeting image. Her mother smiling at her from the doorway of the room as if she had been there all along, accompanying her. Ethan had died screaming her name. She had given birth calling for love. The difference said it all. That was the night that fire consumed everything, and from the ashes a new, clean, free life was born. The first cry of her son was the most sacred sound Lucia had ever heard in her life. That sharp, wild cry, fresh from the womb, broke her soul and at the same time rebuilt it. She held him to her chest, so small, so real, with hands still covered in blood and a face wrinkled like a new promise. She looked at him, not understanding how something so clean could have come from such a dirty past. She named him Leo, not for the animal, but because she knew he would have to learn to survive in a jungle that often disguised itself as a home. She wanted his name to be strength, not fear, because he shouldn't carry the shame of his origin. He had to live without chains, without secrets, without the poison that had consumed almost her entire life. The first few days in the hospital were a daze. Lucia barely ate, barely slept. Her body responded little. Her hands were trembling, fever came in bursts, and her back pain was constant. The doctors confirmed it after several tests. An advanced autoimmune disease, likely activated by prolonged stress and physical trauma. Her nervous system was slowly collapsing. Her body had endured more than it should have. The prognosis was clear. No more than 3 months, and maybe much less if she didn't rest. There was no cure, only palliative care. Lucia didn't cry when she heard the news. She didn't get angry either. She looked at the doctor with the serenity of someone who has already been to hell and has understood that not all pain means defeat. "How much time do I have with him in my arms?" she asked. "Enough," the doctor replied. "But he's going to need help. Someone to raise him when you can no longer." Lucia thought of Gabby, of Ben, of everything they had been through together. Of Teresa, who was still recovering from the fire. Of the other women who were starting to speak and weave an invisible web of strength among themselves. Her son would not be alone. Every morning when she woke up, she would place him on her chest and sing songs she made up on the spot. Nothing sophisticated, just words of love, of resistance, of tenderness that had never been sung to her. She called him her dirty miracle, her blessing in the midst of chaos. Her sign that life was not as broken as it seemed. Ben became a key figure. He wasn't Leo's father, but he treated him with the respect of someone who knows the cost of protecting something sacred. He changed diapers, prepared formula, and held him when Lucia couldn't hold him anymore. "He's going to miss you so much," he said one night while Leo slept between them in the hospital room. "Not as much as I will miss him," she replied, stroking his nose. "Are you ready for what's to come? You're never ready. You just accept it." In those days of clarity, Lucia decided to write a letter to her son, not as a will, but as a living farewell. She sat in bed with a notebook in her hands and began to write with a trembling hand and eyes full of calm. "Leo, my son, you were not born of love, but you were my reason for awakening from death. Your arrival reminded me that the soul can be rebuilt even when it is made of ashes. I didn't ask for you, but I received you with open arms. You were the beat that sustained me when everything else was breaking. I cannot promise you an eternal mother, but I can promise you a mother who did not run. I have no inheritance to leave you, except for this truth. Never let pain define you. Make it part of your story, not the center of it. I love you more than these words can say. Not because of how you came, but because of what you made me become. Mom." Gabby found the letter on the table, folded carefully, as if Lucia had known that this would be her last day with strength. When she entered the room that morning, her sister was sleeping with a slight smile, as if she had finally dreamed of a place without monsters. Lucia didn't wake up. Her body couldn't take any more. She died without making a sound, with Leo sleeping on her chest, with her breathing paused like a final sigh. Gabby approached, kissed her on the forehead, and cried in silence. There were no screams, only the echo of goodbye floating in the air. The following days were a blur. Gabby took care of everything. Ben held Leo during the burial. No one from the neighborhood went, but many women with anonymous names, victims, survivors, allies, did. They brought flowers, candles, and a common promise that Lucia's name would not be forgotten. 3 months later, Gabby took the stage at a national conference on gender-based violence. The auditorium was full not only of women but also of lawyers, social workers, doctors, and journalists. On the giant screen behind her appeared a photograph of Lucia dressed in red, with her belly in front, standing in front of the house where Ethan had humiliated her. Gabby wore a simple black dress. She no longer needed a cane. Her eyes, although they didn't see with total clarity, shone with a confidence that commanded respect. In her hands, she held the letter. "My name is Gabriella Miller," she began in a firm voice. "I am a survivor of child abuse, pharmacological manipulation, and institutional abandonment. But above all, I am the sister of Lucy Miller, and today I am here to honor her voice." The room was absolutely silent. My sister died with a worn-out body but an intact soul. She fought for many and left us a mission. That is why today we announce the official inauguration of the Lucia Miller Foundation, a space where women who are victims of abuse, violence, and trafficking can receive free psychological, legal, and medical help with dignity, with respect. Applause erupted, but Gabby raised a hand. "I'm not finished yet." She took a deep breath. She opened the letter. Her voice only broke once. Lucia wrote this for her son, but deep down, she wrote it for all of us. For those who couldn't speak, for those who are still silent, for those who believe there is no way out, and for those who are about to give up. Because if my sister taught us anything, it's that pain is not fought with silence. It is transformed into fire. She held up the letter. My sister died without clothes, but God clothed her in dignity. And that is the clothing that does not burn. The auditorium stood. Applause, tears, shouts of support, women hugging each other. And in a corner, Leo, asleep in Ben's arms, with the same serene gesture that Lucia had in her sleep. On the wall of the stage, a large image hung. The silhouette of a woman walking through fire with her head held high, and below it, a simple motto that was already beginning to become a symbol. Lucy Miller. Not born to burn, born to ignite.